Gregory Brown, and this is episode 8 of Writing a Programming Book. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the idea of writing based on inspiration versus writing as just a grind. And I think for a very long time, I tended to rely on inspiration for my writing, meaning I would sit around for a long time letting ideas flow around in my head. And then when I finally got the motivation and the excitement to work on something, I would sit down and work. And this was before I had kids and a lot of other responsibilities, so I could work overnight or I could work for 2 or 3 days straight on a writing project and then just do nothing for a week or two afterwards related to the work. And it sort of worked. I think it the problem with it was that there was no real reliable schedule to it. There was no sense of when things would be done or ready. And in the case of when there was deadline pressure, you would get this sort of motivation that was purely based on urgency. Like, I've got a day to finish this, so I'm going to go and finish it, right? And I don't know whether that produces good work or not. I think maybe sometimes it does. The problem about it is that it doesn't produce consistent work. And because of that, you end up with this feeling, which is when you're not producing, you feel miserable. You feel like you're stressed. You don't know when the inspiration. Maybe some people who have a very free way of looking at things could say, well, it's going to happen eventually, and I'll just go about my business until it does. I'm not that kind of person at all. Make me more and more stressed starting from the day after I finished something until the day that a new thing was supposed to be done. It would just build and build and build and build. And even though that approach where you wait for the inspiration almost it seems like it could be liberating in a way, because it means you don't have to try to write when you're not in the mood for it. You can see from what I've said that in my case at least, it really created a lot of pressure and stress on me. So more recently, I've been transitioning probably over the last couple of years, and it's still hard. I don't always do it this way, but I've been transitioning to the idea of just treating writing like a grind. You sit down and you do a little bit of it when you get a chance to do it. And I've got 2 little kids. I've got other work responsibilities. It's not at all the same as my life when I was a teenager or in my early 20s. And so you don't get those huge periods of time anyway. And when you do, you might not have the energy to really, really use them well. They don't line up with the inspiration factor of things. So what I need to do is I need to use all of the little gaps in my schedule to do useful things. And right now, for example, I'm taking care of my daughter, but she's down for a nap, so I'm making this video. Over the weekend, at some point, if my wife runs out to the store with the kids or something like that, that's when I'm going to pick up a notebook and start sketching notes for essay or something like that. You have to use like every little bits and pieces of time and just brick by brick by brick build up your work. And it's really hard to do that because the easiest excuse you could possibly make is, I've only got 20 minutes of time, I've only got a half hour of time, I only got an hour of time. Let me just not use that. Let me just use it to relax a little bit. Let me use it just to take care of myself in some way. And when you have a larger chunk of time, you're thinking, well, I never really get a good break, so I should use that time to take a nice rest, do a big project for myself. And you could do all of that as long as you're also some of the time saying, you know what, no, let me spend an hour or so working on my project. Because if I don't, when you add up the 10 opportunities that I had to do that, if I took all of them, now I'm this much closer to having my finished work done. If I took none of them, I'm that much farther away. And then it builds and it builds and it builds. If I take this approach, I'll have my 2 chapters that I need to have done for my book by December 15th would not even realize it, without even being like a single period where I did the work, right? If I don't do it, what's going to happen is like first week of December, I'm going to be trying to piece together a book by stealing the time away from my family, by stealing the time away from my friends and myself, and then just burning through it in a few days. And it's not a good way to work. It doesn't produce the best work. It's not healthy. And it's harder to get in the habit of taking the little sacrifices. Like right now, I'm tired. Baby hasn't been sleeping so good for the last few days. I would love to just check out and play a video game for a half hour or something like that. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead. And those are small sacrifices. It's harder to get in the habit of doing that, but in the end, much more beneficial to do it, because then you don't make the big sacrifice of burning down an entire weekend to rush through something and then being miserable for the next week because you overworked yourself. And it makes everything more predictable, and it makes everything more reliable, and it makes it so that you don't have to be the one who in your book says, oh, I want to apologize to my family for how much time I've taken away from them. That's not the right way to do things. So it is a grind, it is a challenge, but it's the right way to do things in the end. And it's something that you should try if you're of the inspiration mindset. Try to treat your work as a grind. Use the little bits of time that you have. Work on it every day and see where that takes you.